Tune in and drop out, live from the Satellite of Dreams, beaming directly into your eardrums. Our hosts have talked about the games that persists in the hearts and minds of gamers everywhere. We have our hosts, the evil AI Brogan, and the companion cube Murph. Today, we are thinking with portals. But first, how are you doing, Murph?
I'm all right, all things considered. I do want to call attention to the fact you for 5 seconds there, I saw the attempt at doing the GLaDOS voice.
And then I gave up. Yes.
Yeah. Super hard.
Well, you got COVID, so I don't need lectures from you.
I don't know the timeline of when this is coming out. I have gotten back from PAX West in Seattle, and the fucking gamers gave me COVID.
Oh my gosh!
And every PAX I've attended post 2020, I have always worn a mask on the show floor. And this year was the year I was like, oh, everyone knows to be clean these days.
No, big mistake, huge mistake.
Yeah, like first thing after I got home was I just had a violent coughing fit, took a COVID test, positive. I'm on the mend now, but the listeners will be getting my husky voice.
How was PAX as like an actual event?
PAX was good. This was probably one of the most PAXy PAXes post-COVID. But I think like when I think about PAXes I did pre-2020, this is a real return to form because there wasn't a lot of like shilling on the show floor. There wasn't gratuitous food booths. And things like that. There was a pretty good, like, AAA representation, some real good indie spotlights. I've noticed more and more that all the indie studios are sort of, like, coalescing their booths into, like, super booths as they, like, start forming publisher groups.
They're coalescing into different factions.
Yes.
So it sounds like it was a good time. It's no swan song. You'll be back next year, right?
No swan song. One may even call it a Silksong if anyone was able to get in to play that demo, because Nintendo's insane.
Why were they super selective demos for a game that came out like a week later?
It wasn't even a week later. It came out 2 days later. PAX West ends on September 2nd. Silksong came out on the 4th.
This is wild to me, Murph. What the fuck happened?
I think it was people wanted to get their social media posts and pictures being like, oh my god, Silksong, it's real. It's in my hands. I'm playing it. And then they just wait another 2 days and then everyone's playing it, you know?
So I have played Silksong, and I am still in the middle of playing it, but I think I'm pretty sizably into it.
Okay.
All right, preface.
Uh-huh.
I liked Hollow Knight.
Oh, he's putting up defenses, listeners. He's putting up defenses.
I'm putting up defenses. Yes. Hollow Knight is like an 8 out of 10 that people have gaslit themselves to think is a 10 out of 10.
Is it kind of a, I'll say Kingdom Hearts 3 scenario where the long wait has mythologized the franchise a bit, this franchise of 2 games?
I think people were already really, really hot on Hollow Knight for a long time. I think Hollow Knight intersects a little bit with Dark Souls, where if you're a fan and you drink the Kool-Aid, you could be like too hardcore of a fan. And mixed the Metroidvania elements, it just created a perfect storm. But then Silksong has that like Elden Ring, like, oh, is it ever going to come out? Like that mythology is definitely there. I come to you today to tell you Silksong, spoiler alert, is the sequel to Hollow Knight. And I mean that very flatly.
Yeah.
Like, it is, like, everything I did not like about Hollow Knight is in Silksong. That being said, I, as of right now, am enjoying Silksong a little bit more. The differences are a little notable, but it's all in, like, the small elements that make up the whole. It is, like, fundamentally the same fucking game.
I'd never played Hollow Knight. It's on the list. But when looking at, like, pre-release footage for Silksong, what little there was. I mean, number one, this was planned as like a DLC first, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then it became a full game, and it just didn't look different to me from Hollow Knight to warrant this build up. It's not like, oh my god, it's a sequel to Hollow Knight and they're breaching the third dimension, or anything like that.
Yeah, there's nothing crazy. There's no craziness to this. But here's the thing: is I think there is a section of people that are incredibly happy because ultimately what that means is it's still a good Metroidvania with Souls elements. Like, that doesn't go away. It's still, like, a good game you're getting.
Yeah.
And then, like, I think the rest of the discourse around it comes from grappling with that. Like, for instance, difficulty. I bet... I'm trying to think of how to say this. There are a lot more people playing this on day one than there were Hollow Knight.
Yeah.
I believe, roughly speaking, in terms of ratio, I bet the same people dropped off Silksong versus Hollow Knight. If not a little bit more, just because Silksong doesn't have, like, extensive guides right now. But, like, this game is not friendly to the over 1 million people who bought it. There's no way. Like, I would say over, like, 700,000 of the over 1 million people who bought it will drop off this game in the first 3 hours.
Yeah, but they're here because they want to be part of the cultural moment in the gamer sphere, right?
I don't even know what that means, Murph.
It's like...
I doubt this. I definitely see the reason being real, but I just think it's misguided. If you want to play a game, you should play a game because it looks good.
Yeah.
That being said, I did get it for the moment because I was like, the discourse is happening, and I'm like, all right, it's fine. But it's more also like secretly in the back of my head is like, I have to know whether or not I actually like this game.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to use, again, going back to like Kingdom Hearts 3 as a comparison, I knew a lot of people that bought that because it had been so built up and mythologized. And then they come to me and being like, man, this game isn't like friendly to people that didn't play any of the prior games. And I'm like, yeah, man, I don't know what to tell you. It's a Kingdom Hearts game. It's not a new IP.
Yeah. Yep. You're getting exactly what it was advertised. And to be fair, this game did not... I think the not advertising thing was good for Team Cherry.
Yeah.
I don't think it was good for anybody else.
It wasn't good for the sanity.
I don't think it was good for the sanity, and I don't think it is good for first-time buyers or players. Mostly because, like, yeah, I don't know. Yes, at the end of the day, they knew they were going to get Hollow Knight 2, the same fucking game but different. And that's fine, but, like, I feel like a demo or, like, other things in place would have helped people alleviate expectations. But then again, if you alleviated any expectations and told anybody, wow, maybe this game isn't for me, less people would have bought it.
Mm.
And I don't necessarily know if that's the way we want things to be. But it's fine. It's fine. The only thing I'm going to ever bristle at with this game is, like, Game of the Year talks. As of right now, I'm like, this ain't no 10 out of 10. I can already see flaws with it. And I guess I haven't actually talked about the meat and potatoes gameplay. It is a Metroidvania with combat elements. If you've played Hollow Knight, it is the same. The primary differences are Hornet moves fundamentally differently with more movement options. Instead of like a step dash, she has like a full-on sprint. And her needle is different in terms of how it functions, but you have different crests throughout the game that allow you to have the needle swung in different ways. One of them is the original Hollow Knight way, and this means pogo as well. There's like when you do a downward thrust, you can actually land on things, and that allows you to pogo off creatures or spikes, which are one-hit kill typically, or one-hit. It's like a hit thing, and then you got to reset. Either way, and they also, Hornet doesn't have charms. She has like tools in her belt that you can use, but charms in like the Paper Mario badge sense from the original Hollow Knight are not there. Okay. They don't have those anymore.
So does it feel like, because this is the odd case of a sequel where you're playing as like a different character with a different skill set, but also kind of not really. Like, in terms of, I don't know, I don't know why my brain's going to this. I haven't played either of these games, but like a Mega Man X to a Mega Man Zero, does it kind of feel like that? Like, do you see the bones of when this was DLC for Hollow Knight?
1000%. I would say Hornet plays even less different. I don't know if you know the difference between X and Zero, Murph.
One has a sword.
X does not have... One has a sword. One's entirely melee, one is gun-based, and there's a lot of progression things between the two that are different. Hornet's not even that far. Hornet's, like, pretty fucking close to the thing. That being said, the crests are fundamentally different, but yes, this feels like big DLC. Or it just feels like more Hollow Knight. Which is, I guess, what DLC is sometimes. And sometimes it's what a sequel is.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way, Murph. Maybe this is not what I like sequels to be. I like a sequel like I like a Riven.
Uh-huh.
I like a sequel that changes or dares or does something different, even if it's for the worse. I always like a Dark Souls 2 over a Dark Souls,
That was exactly
3.
the comparison I was going to make.
Yeah, and I think Hollow Knight is just giving me, or the Silksong is just giving me more of what I didn't fall in love with.
Yeah.
It's like seeing a first date that didn't work out well, and now the date has dyed their hair, and it's been like 8 years, and we're trying again, but there's a reason it didn't work out.
And it's all just artifice. It's, one might even say, firmament.
Okay, all right, Murph. I've read your review of Firmament, and it does not look good. We're already getting into the missed minute, friends.
This is the final missed minute, barring any sort of like total missed retrospective Murph diagram thing. I'm kind of thinking about how I want to go about it. But as far as in the actual Daydreamcast episodes, this will be the last time you hear me talk about like a missed game for a while. So Firmament was the second original game we got from Cyan following their revival. It's the follow-up to Abduction, and I really liked Abduction, So I was excited for Firmament. Firmament is gosh darn pretty. It's a real looker of a game. And, where we're going to be talking about, like, the Riven 2024 remake, I would say it's on par with those visuals. With having its own distinct style that's very, like, turn-of-the-century France, like, steampunk. It kind of evokes like a Jules Verne, BioShock Infinite sort of aesthetic to it.
Art Deco, but more scientific or sci-fi.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is the extent of my praise for Firmament. And
damn,
I beat this game a while ago. I beat this before PAX. And I spent most of PAX actually thinking back and forth in my quiet moments, do I think this is worse than Myst 5? And Myst 5 is already at the bottom of the barrel of, like, actual official Cyan games. If I count everything in the Myst Minute, nothing's worse than Drowned God. But, Drowned God got in here
iconic
on a fluke.
Iconic.
So, and I've come to the conclusion, yes, because Myst 5 at least feels like it came from Cyan. Firmament feels like anyone could have made this. It feels...
Ouch.
It is tasteless, odorless, vaporless. The plot is you wake up in a pod, being awakened by a sad French woman, and she says that you are the latest keeper in a long line of keepers, and that it is your job to begin the arrival, so that the what are they fucking called? Are they straight up just called the Arrivers? Yeah, they're called the Arrivers. You got to begin the arrival so the Arrivers can arrive.
This is my brain has already glazed over.
Yeah. So and you go through various realms to solve puzzles and turn on a big machine in each of them, to activate the arrival. And your sad French woman accompanies you, because she's just a hologram, and she will talk to you at many points throughout the game about how she's sad and how everything fell apart with the Keepers, because an arrival arrived early, and he tore them apart, and it's a lot of guff, and
yeah,
it's really, if you cannot tell by how I'm speaking about it, it's really like YA dystopian proper nounisms. You know, these are the Keepers. They're waiting for the arrivers to start the arrival, you know. And this whole game kind of builds to this twist, this reveal. It pulls back the firmament, one might say. And it's a very... My brain immediately went to, it's a very Shyamalan twist. Not just because there is one specific Shyamalan twist I am thinking of, but because it's a twist where you think back everything before that, and you're like, no, wait, that makes no sense. You know?
That's devastating, yeah.
Where it's sort of like, no, I think Bruce Willis would have figured out earlier that he was dead. Or, maybe those people in the village would have seen a plane at some point.
Yeah. It's like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So, what's the twist?
Do you want to know? Because I
kind of do.
I don't give a shit about Firmament.
What's the twist? Spoiler alert to the people at home. What's the twist?
The twist is that all the realms you travel through are actually like biospheres on a spaceship that was put together by Karl Marx, Jules Verne, Marie Curie, and Nikola Tesla to be an ark for humanity out in space. And the Keepers are like people that were like lived on the ship thinking that it was like fantastical in order to keep the systems running, and the arrivers are the people in suspended animation.
Okay. All right. Does it pay off? Was it executed well by the end?
The fact I guessed the twist super early. The moment it's like, oh, the Keepers and the arrivers, I'm like, okay, so this is like some sort of like propaganda thing. Like, this is all a lie.
Yeah.
You know, that I kind of clued into that. There's like a few small clues, but it's really just the way everything's like spoken about the grand illusion being torn down. I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for it. It's a simulation. It's a spaceship. It's a something, you know.
Yeah.
And maybe I wouldn't have much time to dwell on how monotonous the plot is if the puzzles were any good, but they're kind of not. It's actually sort of apt that this is in the Portal episode, because this is like halfway to being a Portal type game. It's not like prior Cyan games where it's like fiddling with machines, figuring out culture, figuring out how like the electronics work. Instead, you are given a gizmo. This is a gizmo-type puzzler.
Okay.
Called your adjudicator. Which just, it pops out, it pops out into any universal socket, and you can move machines one of two ways. So if it's a crane, you can raise and lower the crane. If it's a tram, you can move the tram forwards and backwards. And all the puzzles are built around this.
That sounds boring.
It is, and it took me a while to figure out why these weren't clicking the way prior Cyan puzzles did. Even Myst 5 still had Cyan-type puzzles. And then I finally realized, oh, these are like horror game puzzles.
That's not good, because to me, horror game puzzles are bad because, or at least in this current era when we're talking like fucking Outlast shit, is because it's not a development priority in terms of you want atmosphere and you want the scares and like how the scare works, and then the puzzles just break up pace. And if that's the primary function of the game and it's mid-ass puzzles, what's the glue holding it together?
Yeah, exactly. It's all some variation on like a sliding block puzzle or some sort of spatial logic puzzle.
Okay.
Which is something you'd see in like a Resident Evil game, where it's like, oh, I need to get from one end of this warehouse to the other, but first I need to operate this crane to move like cargo containers around to create a path, you know?
Yeah.
And like you said, that's to break from like the forward momentum. It's to take a breath. But if your game is all breaths, the player just overinflates.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also does not help that the game is really buggy to the degree that in several moments where I was lost, I referenced a guide. And the guide at several points in like big bold text said, save before this part because most people's like the game tends to crash or you soft lock yourself.
That's not good. That's really bad.
It's also to a degree that in the pause menu, it has a reset this level for me because I have trapped myself. And so this happened to me 3 times. Twice in the same spot and then one in another where it wasn't even the game glitched out, it's just that the puzzle I was on legitimately had like 2 ways to soft lock yourself out and not be able to progress forward.
Why don't you just make puzzles that don't do that?
Well, I have this sneaking suspicion that Cyan Studios and the Brothers Miller did not bring even their D game to this. Because also, on top of everything that's bad about Firmament, when I got to the end credits, I got a little message saying that art assets, voice acting, character journals, portraits were all done with the use of AI tools.
Yikes. Big F.
Now,
but that explains the quality drop.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And the AI assets are, like, noticeable. When you get to the twist ending and you see the portraits of all the, like, IRL people that put together the Firmament project, I was very baffled. There's, like, pictures of Karl Marx, Nikola Tesla, and stuff, like, on the internet. You know, there's portraits of these dudes.
But the AI generated fucking pictures of them.
Yeah.
Why? Who thought this was acceptable?
So I really do think that Firmament is the worst Cyan game and the worst game of the missed minute, because it's just kind of like, 1, reprehensible, and 2, you just kind of look around being like, what the fuck happened, guys? You know?
Oh my gosh.
They
can't all be Riven.
No, they really can't. And then, so, you know, if not for the 2024 remake of Riven, the missed minute would have ended on such a low note of 2 back-to-back F-tier games.
Damn. But,
oh god, but this is so funny because you also played through the Riven Remake.
Yes, I figured this was the time.
And you were like, this is going to be the final boss. We're going to finally make Murph confront his B grade of Riven.
Yes.
And the unfortunate thing is that I actually really enjoyed the Riven Remake.
Good. No, it's fine. I read your review, and I would highly recommend viewers read his review of the Riven Remake. I completely get it, especially in the context of what it fixes. This is a remake that largely, there's some bugaboos, but largely fixes problems of the original and provides a lot of new stuff as well.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that stood out to me was your highlight of how the newer puzzles and newer tools utilize the Riven culture and are more about you understanding Riven culture to conquer the to conquer the puzzles rather than learning the Denise stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good example of like the anti-colonialist themes. That definitely stood out to me, and like I think it's also a little bit better to put it simply. Like, let's take the shape puzzle in the original Riven. I feel that is better in the new one. It makes much clearer what the symbols are.
Yeah, I think so. If you listen back to all the Myst minutes up to this point and the Myst and Riven episodes of the Daydreamcast, I was always in favor of a Riven remake with a free camera. And the reason why the sort of like Unreal Engine 5, Nintendo hire this man aesthetic doesn't harm me for this one the way it did for Myst 2021 is that OG Myst, that's like a fantastical game in a way that Riven sort of isn't. Myst feels like a picture book. Riven is like a world. You get immersed in Riven in a way you don't really in Myst. So doing the free camera, doing the high def visuals make you feel more that you are in there, which helps. And it also helps that they sort of, it's not even like streamlined, it's more they sort of like adjusted the pacing or at least the flow of things. When you were watching me play it, we both called out this great moment where you're on the Dome Island, the big golden dome, and there's a bridge. If you've played the original, you know that there's this bridge you have to lower. And if you don't do that in the early game, you sort of screw yourself and have to like do this way long route back from Crater Island. You go to lower the bridge in the remake, the whole thing just collapses into the water.
Yeah, and that's the moment where I was like, oh, this is a different kind of remake.
Yeah. And that actually sort of checks out for the pacing because you don't come back to Dome Island until the very end. Whereas in the original, you were kind of flitting back there all the time because it was sort of like, it was a shortcut to Crater Island, which was a shortcut to Temple Island, which et cetera, et cetera.
It feels like the islands are much more segmented now in a better way.
Yes, they feel more closed off, which makes it easier.
And that's a good thing. Yeah.
It makes it easier to focus on their specific puzzles so that then your reward for, completing them is you get their piece to the much larger puzzles that Riven is known for.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
And I'm kind of like in two minds. I see some people saying that they nerfed the animal totem puzzle. In my mind, they actually made it a lot harder because they give you a new tool that is not present in the original. They give you like the fucking Sheikah lens of truth to see secret markings from the Moieti rebels. And if you don't remember to do that, and, just be looking every which way with that, as I did, when you notice just nonchalantly, like, hey, those butterflies on those trees are kind of arranged like a symbol I know, you may go, oh no, there are probably things all over the place I missed.
But to me, I think that's so cool and better than the way Riven, the original, did it.
Yeah.
Because the original one, I remember going back to it, we were like, does that rock look like a fish? I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
That was definitely a weird spot for me. This game has, to me, I vaguely remember it. This has more machine tinkering than before. Like, it feels a lot more like Myst in the moment to moment.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot more like so like the little spheres of the original, the Dunny spheres that you would like find in the environment and you'd like tilt them over, they'd have a number on them, but they'd also make a sound, like an animal sound. It's done much more organic now, where those are gone completely. And they're not really, like, replaced. I mean, they're replaced mechanically, but they're not in the same spots with these totems. And you look inside those, and you see a Riven number. It's done in the Riven number system and not the Dunny number system. And you were the one that called this out to me, where you're like, why didn't you rotate it?
Yeah!
And I was like, I didn't realize I could. And you know what? That's kind of like noticing the animal symbols in the environment. Where it's like, oh, I gotta go back and do everything different now. Yeah.
I think that's one of the things I'll comment against the free camera system. Not so much with that, but a good example is like the off paths, for instance. I feel like it's easier on just the clicking to just like click all over the screen, and then when something interacts or I move to a new screen, it's like, okay, this makes sense. Whereas like I'm kind of wandering and trying to find new outlets to get through things, especially when I'm going off the beaten path and I'm trying to look for things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can get that. To me, it doesn't bother me too much, and I think that's because this is my third time coming back to Riven. So even with their changes, I know the layout, and so it's much easier to sort of just follow the paths to where I need to go. They do reduce like a number of puzzles that just really wouldn't even work with a free camera. Something like the submarine puzzle, where in the original that's like a maze. You have to get up to a high point and look down and sort of draw a map to know where to turn that submarine to get where you want to go. In this, it's not even a puzzle. The submarine has like nodes. It has like, points you can travel to, and you just have to figure out which of those points is which.
Yeah. But like overall, I really like this. I think I was trying to articulate a way to say what I like about Riven as a sequel. It's been stewing in my brain. And I think the way to say it was, what you liked about Myst was the illusory, transitory, like, liminal space of it all. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, I'm going into these worlds and I'm seeing how fake they are.
Yeah.
I think Riven is a good companion. I like a sequel when it's a companion because it is saying the opposite, but sort of in a complementary way. Where it's like, this is a living, breathing world with people and emotions and cultures within.
Yeah.
And it basically looks at the other side of it, where if you completely dedicated yourself to Murph's take, it would begin. But it's sort of done in a different narrative, and it's just a compliment, and it looks at the themes of the original Myst in a different way, and I enjoy that.
Yeah.
And I think with this remake, it irons out a lot of stuff. I think this would be the thing to recommend. I still like the original Riven, but I think to show the vision of what I enjoy about it, this game captures it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if someone wanted to say, like, I want to experience Riven, I would be kind of in two minds, where it's like, well, what are you actually expecting to get out of Riven? Assuming they have played Myst.
Yeah.
Where, I feel totally comfortable recommending someone play the original Riven. But I think that in terms of, like, the remake aspect, because this is Riven's first remake. Myst has 5 down the tube.
Goddamn.
I think this is fine to recommend. Like, if someone wants to get their, like, moment, I have to, like, now I can finally play this old game, because it's in a presentable manner to me, the modern gamer. Really, its most egregious aspect is still those CG models are crap.
Dude, they're so dog shit. They're unbelievable. The problem here is Riven used more people.
Yeah.
Like, Myst has them for like 2 fucking seconds. There's probably like a minute or 2 minutes worth of footage in like the total of Myst. But here there's like extended cutscenes. And like Gen has an entire fucking monologue.
Yeah.
And like it just does not hit the same.
It doesn't, and God, props to them for keeping that voice actor's performance, because it's still so good, and still really, like, there's that moment where you're, like, sort of meant to question, is Gin reformed, and Catherine's actually the quote-unquote bad guy of the story, until you, like, go down into his basement and find a secret journal where he's like, I love being evil.
Yeah.
I was also surprised they added some lore down there. I don't know if...
They added quite a bit to... I noticed it because I haven't played the later games, that when I was reading this, I was like, oh, they've added a bit that I guess is in line with the sequels.
Yeah, there's a bit more talk about his parents, who are, like, one of the books is about them. But in his little, like, recording device, in the original, that was just, like, a visual of some dunny, like, youth he was going to make his child bride. They added some additional recordings where it's a recording of his father, and then also a recording of his mother, who is, like, hugely important in the Myst lore. So I don't know what that portends, if that was something they always wanted to do. I know the woman playing Anna, which is her name, played Yisha in Myst 5, but also Catherine in the original. So I don't know if that's just, like, a little nod to, like, that.
What is the implication?
Yeah. If that means they're gonna, like, try and do more Myst remakes or even, like, Myst prequels adapting the book lore, I don't know. I don't really know.
Do you think Cyan could fix Myst 3 and 4?
Well, I already said Myst 4 is A tier, so, like, Myst 3, I think you would need to do, like, a ground up, just complete, like, rewrite. It needs like the Resident Evil, like, 2 remake team coming in there to flesh out everything that's present.
Gotcha. So it would need to be, like, completely gutted.
I think so, because as I like look back at, like, Myst as a franchise now, like the numbered games, I think if you had done Myst, Riven, and then Myst 4, but just called it, like, Exiles or Revelations, or whatever you want to call it. That's a pretty tight little trilogy. And then you do, like, your spin-off. You can do Uru, Ages Beyond Myst. And you can even have a sequel to that that's sort of like Myst 5. And then you keep all that dunny stuff separate, and then this trilogy is just about, like, this family, like, drama. I think that's pretty tight. Myst 3's problem is that its story is nothing at all. Like, it pretty good visuals, pretty good puzzles, pretty good ages. It's all leaning so hard on Brad Dourif, and he cannot support that weight.
Yeah. Good actor, not that good.
Yeah. And so now we come to the end of the Myst Minute, and, when I started this project, I did ask the question, it was 2 questions. What is the value of having the original devs, auteur theory in games? And what is the value of remaking a game to take, to use the new advancements in technology?
Where have you landed?
Well, I was going to comment, it's interesting that these are the final 2 games. A game, Firmament, where it says, maybe having the original dudes around ain't shit. Because maybe they're old men, and they weren't ever, wanted to be game devs to begin with.
Yeah.
And 2, remaking Riven made me appreciate Riven a lot more. I think I'm still dwelling on what my thesis is for the Myst playthrough.
Yeah.
My thesis with Resident Evil was 9/11 changed Resident Evil. My thesis with Yakuza was, sometimes people like genres they hate if it's about a thing they like, i.e. Japan.
Yeah.
With Myst, it's a little cloudier because it was a little more all over the place. Because I was playing every remake, I was playing each version of a game because Cyan kept putting out remakes to take advantage of technology. Even their earliest games, The Manhole has 3 remakes, more if you count the different versions that they ported to different PC types, like PC Engine and such.
These guys are these games are prone to remakes, which makes sense because at their core, if they're not puzzle games, they're adventure games.
Yes.
And adventure games are some of the most remade things ever.
Yeah. If we want to jump company, Sierra has made King's Quest 1 quite a few times.
Yep.
Not even straight remakes, but also reimaginings and things like that.
Yep.
Right now, my working thesis is, I think what happened with the Brothers Miller is the same thing we see happen often with, I'm not sure subversive is the right word, but when hot young artists come on the scene and they do something that no one ever thought to do before, and they got really successful doing it, and then they become part of that institution, They stop being subversive. They just become known for their trick.
Like M. Night Shyamalan.
I was also, maybe because of the news, it was in my head of, also Monty Python,
Yeah.
Where it's one day you're the one making crass jokes, and then you come on Twitter and, I don't think people should make crass jokes.
It's okay, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, they may just be too old for the art.
Yeah. There's 2 Johns inside of you. You can either become a John Waters, or you can become a John Cleese.
And you want to be a John Waters every day of the week. Murph, it's already 42 minutes in. Do you think we're ready for the game of the week? Or games of the week?
Or even the Variety Minute?
Oh shit, there's a Variety Minute!
We don't have to do the Variety Minute, you can cut this.
This week's Variety Minute is narrative puzzle games. There are quite a few. I think this goes back to what we just said earlier, where adventure games with the heavy narrative elements behoove themselves to have puzzles.
Yeah.
And sometimes the ratio is a little flipped the other way
What
around.
I think about when you say narrative puzzle games, I think about, I think about Myst, I think about Portal, I think about The Witness and Outer Wilds. And what occurs to me is these are often games where people come in and say no, this is actually the best story ever told in a video game, and and then some people will come on and be this is just a glorified walking simulator, or something like that.
Yeah.
And what do you think it is about someone saying oh, let's give our doofy little game about thinking with portals a narrative that then brings out their A game, or at the very least gets gamers to start thinking about the narrative in a way they wouldn't if it was Call of Duty Shoot-A-Man?
I think it comes from multiple things. First of all, smaller teams or singular teams. I think my actual first... This shows my age. I grew up, the era where I was oh yeah, I'm taking games seriously, was around the Xbox Live Arcade era. And so, Braid was, I think, the first game to me that was oh, this puzzle game, you could have just made a goofy ass, as Soulja Boy once eloquently put. You could just make a Mario game with Time Juice Potion. You could just do that, and no one would give a fuck. And it'd be probably pretty cool. Mario just doing Time Juice shit sounds dope. But Jonathan Blow, who I don't like personally. John Blow is a bad person. But he made Braid, and Braid tried to do more with the idea. He took the concept of going back in time, and then he experimented with what those levels would look like, and then he experimented with what that story looks like. Sometimes it's looking back on a relationship, sometimes it's looking back on your childhood, sometimes it's looking back on one big mistake of your life. And Braid is able to capture all of those into singular chapters in a really nice way. But it basically comes from smaller voices, and it comes from with the decision to entertain beyond the singular element. I think Outer Wilds does a really good job with the time loop apocalypse thing. I think the best comparison with Outer Wilds is Majora's Mask, in that sense of the impending doom puts the thematic themes in perspective. Yeah. And then the puzzles and everything that builds around it aids in the narrative. What helps is you can have a basic puzzle mechanic, and then it helps the themes of the narrative. It's a lot less graceful in other genres.
Yeah, I think, and a lot of these are, and it's almost. I hesitate to say, like, oh, these are all built on the back of Portal, but there are games like the Talos Principle, or like The Witness, which Jonathan Blow said is more in common with, it's actually based on Myst, which I don't see, looking at the gameplay, but they're often, like I called Firmament, like gizmo puzzlers. You're given, like, a device, you know, and you use that to solve your puzzles. And then so the narrative becomes about, like, the device itself. Who built the device? What is the device used for? What is the player's relationship to the device and the people that built it? And I think it's just, like, really in one of the more elegant ways that a game can have narrative interlinked with mechanics, you know. Getting the player to... I don't think about that sort of thing, you know.
Yeah. I think I wanted to highlight Chance of Sinar as an interesting puzzler that also focuses on cultures, and it's a beautiful game. I also like. This is a kind of cheating a little bit. I like La Mulana. One day I will vouch for a La Mulana episode, because that, to me, is like the best Indiana Jones game. And it's because of the puzzle elements, and it's because of seeing how everything ties together in a Metroidvania. And it's sort of done in a way that's not like other Metroidvanias. It feels like it just makes complete sense.
We even had, like, a narrative puzzler come out this year that people were over the moon for at the time, which was, like, Blueprints. You know, and I haven't heard hide nor hair of Blueprint since, or if it's, like, the revelation of its narrative knocked people on their ass and made them cry. But it certainly seemed at the moment that, like, captured attention.
To me, I think that's less narrative-based. You know, that's the thing about, like, a roguelike. When you introduce roguelike elements, you have to sprinkle the story in inevitably throughout its runtime, like Hades does. I was not in love with Blueprints, and I think it was a victim to the randomly generated elements. What really works in a lot of these games is, even if the puzzles are random when you press play, the actual gameplay themselves are not randomized. The levels and areas are constructed with purpose. I think that's super important.
And these games also tend to rely a lot on some sort of narrator or GLaDOS-type figure, or at the very least some sort of, like, audio log system. And that means they really have to, like, bring their A game with their voice acting. And if you, like, listen to people do reactions of, like, the Talos Principle 2, some people, like, just start weeping at how good the voice performances are in that.
I wanted to highlight one. I'm surprised you haven't highlighted it yet either. One of your favorite games of all time. I think it's a stretch, but it's kind of an easy stretch, is World of Goo. Because World of Goo has these systems in place, but it doesn't have a narrator, it has a sign poster.
A sign
like
painter.
A sign artist, and a sign painter. And I think a lot of that is because you're by yourself. Puzzle solving is a very solitary experience. You want a sort of companion voice talking to you. And then I think also when we come to the World of Goo, your mind instantly goes to the different mechanics and things that could represent, like pollution, like consumption, like building towards something, community, things like that just naturally lend to themes. And so when you're making a game about building goo, they almost write themselves.
I think it's because these games sort of tap into the part of your brain, like the true divide of your brain, where one is good at, like, one half of your brain's good at mechanical, like, processing, and the other is, like, emotional processing. And while you're occupying the first half with some sort of, like, puzzle, the second half is, like, working overtime trying to guess what's going to happen next, or process whatever revelation you just had, you know? And so it's like a podcast game in a way, where, you know, if you're doing something mundane in, like, an MMO, you may throw on a podcast, and that weirdly gets you better at, like, focusing on the podcast, because the other parts of your body are just doing some mundane crap, you know?
And also, I'd like to highlight the very idea of stopping and thinking about something. You come to a puzzle, so you stop and you think about it. But also, you're doing that with any bit of information you get, because it could help with the puzzle. So it makes the player more thematically engaged with the narrative. Hopefully, if you're doing it right, that means if you get, like, a little lore bomb, you reflect on it. You sit for a moment, it digests, and you wonder if you could reflect that into puzzle solving, or if it means something larger. And thinking about the story at all in any terms heightens the narrative for you. And that's why, like, Riven, it works. Riven's a really, really good example of, like, caring about the things it's trying to communicate through its puzzles.
Yeah, and I would say more than Myst, even, the narrative of Riven feeds into its puzzles, because it's about reading people's journals to understand the culture. In the remake, you called this out to me, in Gen's journals, which I actually didn't read that closely because I thought it was just a copy of the originals. But he mentions, hey, these Riven, like, the numbers of the Riven-esque people only make sense when seen from a particular, like, when they're rotated correctly. And that's your clue to go down and rotate those numbers you've seen previously.
How do you feel about, like, a Zelda? Or, like, do you think a Zelda plays into this stuff?
So,
or where at what point does
so
this
I
break?
was wondering about this delineation, because a couple episodes ago we did Return of the Obra Dinn, and our variety minute there was detective games. And I was wondering, do those fall under this umbrella? Or am I thinking more like puzzle games with narrative elements, not narrative games with puzzle elements?
I get you. Puzzle has to be the predominant thing.
Like, it's built around, like, a puzzle, like, system. Like, if it's like, oh, solving Sudokus, you know, the game is like...
A Sokoban like Void Stranger would work.
Yeah, I think something like that. Void Stranger, yes. Yeah. And so when we get to stuff like Zelda, or aforementioned, like, Resident Evil, you know, more and more we see these, like, AAA games that are like, okay, you have, like, you know, combat systems, dialogue systems, but we're also going to make you stop and do some sliding block puzzles for a hot minute. You know, I waffle back and forth all the time about whether or not I'd call Zelda a puzzle series, because I feel like I've gotten pushback at various times in my life for claiming that, because it really hinges on whether or not people find the puzzles difficult or not.
I feel like it's worth noting, even when it's easy. I mean, like, I think Zelda is largely easy, but I don't think you can call something a genre or exclude it or gatekeep it because of difficulty. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Maybe at most you could say, like, puzzler with a lowercase p, not an uppercase p.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I wanted to highlight, because we kind of broached it, is horror with the puzzles. So like a Silent Hill or a Fatal Frame, the puzzles often lead towards the narrative thing, and it really works well, especially in horror, since the combat... Problem with horror games is usually both are mid... Like, a bad horror game will have bad combat and bad puzzles. A good horror game will probably have one, and then a great horror game has both.
I think we see this with, like, mascot horror really predominantly right now.
Yeah. Where,
you know, in a way, FNAF is kind of a puzzle game at times, you know? And yes. I would say the biggest competitor to FNAF right now is Poppy's Playtime. And those games are pretty explicitly built around a gizmo. It's a gizmo puzzler.
Yep.
It's just broken up with chase sequences. But even the chase sequences themselves are still kind of puzzles. The latest FNAF game, Secret of the Mimic, you watch gameplay of that, it's like stealth sections broken up by, like, fluid pipe puzzles. And that's the core gameplay loop. And I think there is, like, you solve the puzzles to get more of the story, because horror games are really about their stories right now. And I would feel totally comfortable, like, grandfathering quite a few of those under this umbrella.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Murph, do you think we're ready?
I think it's time for the knockdown, like, brawl that is the Portal double feature episode of the Daydreamcast.
I am emotionally prepared for this. This week's first game of the week is Portal, a 2007 puzzle game developed by Valve. It was released on the Orange Box initially. It started as a student game called Narbacular Drop until Robin Walker and Gabe Newell offered the team jobs to develop the game further. The game has you going through different test chambers in Aperture Science laboratories, while the artificial intelligence known as GLaDOS observes you and taunts you. You will be shooting blue and orange portals that are essentially doorways to each other, while you realize the implications of this space and physics of such a miraculous device. Be careful, though, because these tests may not be what they seem. Murph, what'd you think of Portal 1, man?
So, dear listener, what may follow, I haven't looked too far into the future, but what may follow in this discussion, you may find to be maybe one of the most frustrating episodes of the Daydreamcast. At the very least, you're going to hear Brogan at his most impotent. Because this all came about because...
You dare defy me!
Because...
You forget that I edit these!
Because...
Go ahead.
Because Portal 2 is my go-to favorite game of all time. Now, emphasis on the go-to there. If a person asks me, like, I need to hear your favorite game right now, I'm just going to throw out Portal 2. Now
Still? After we played it?
Yeah, yes, and we're probably going to have a discussion.
Ouch!
And be like, you know, Portal 2
Yikes!
Has some flaws, and Portal 1 has some real shine to it. And at the end of this episode, Brogan may ask me, is Portal 2 still your favorite game of all time? And I'm going to go, yeah. Now that said,
oh my god.
Before Portal 2, my go-to favorite game of all time was Portal. Because Portal's good, and I think a lot of the issues people have with Portal and what led to the development of Portal 2 being the way it is because the devs probably didn't expect their tech demo orange box stocking stuffer to, like, blow up the way it did. Yeah. Because playing it this time, it really, like, seeded into me, like, oh yeah, there was a time where people, like, didn't know that, like, GLaDOS was a robot, the Aperture facility is empty, and that the cake is a lie. You know? This is the Portal 1 is like a short horror story. In a way that I think is really undersold. Like, you know, you're in this empty, sterile environment being told to conduct tests by someone you're not even certain is human. And that sort of hangs on your mind even as you're, like, being wowed over by these portal, like, mechanics. Like, you know, I think that the fact this is all done in real time, it had to blow people's minds, and that's why the first puzzle, very clear, not even the first puzzle, when you exit your, like, stasis chamber, you see yourself entering the portal to, like, register your brain in real time. I think a lot of, when it comes to, like, issues with pacing the game, I think it comes down to a lot of the test chambers are about teaching you how to think with portals, and then you only get, like, a real few chambers to actually think with portals, you know?
Yes, definitely, like, looking back now after we're so experienced with it, there's a lot of quaintness of, like, this is taking a long time to convey how this works, especially with physics. Once physics comes into it, like falling into a portal and rocketing out, they spend a lot of time on that. And because they want to make sure you get it. And I played a little bit of this with a friend, and they did not ever play Portal before. They had no idea anything about it. And they needed it. Like, even now in 2025, those were required.
Because we don't have anything else like it, really.
Yeah. Yep. And it's hard to consider things like momentum until you're in the middle of it.
So it's just so tightly done, though, right? Like, we say it's all so that, good. Like, oh, it spends a little too much time tutorializing. But if you add, like, I'm going to say even, like, 2 chambers more before, like, the twist, and then you're on the run, then the game would feel weirdly padded, right?
Yep. It is almost perfectly paced in that way. It's okay for it to do that. And especially because the last portion of it is outside chambers. You're essentially escaping, and you're figuring out how to, like, have rockets send through portals and stuff, and you're putting other things through for momentum. You're sort of experimenting. It's sort of giving the player the ability to have fun with that stuff, and it feels less rigid. And even if it's very short, I think I beat this game in under 2 hours this time. It's a banger. I have like zero problems with this.
Yeah, no, not really. And something that caught me about, like, the escape sequence, and then you're on the run, is, like, how much they start having you use the portal gun. Like, you start doing combat, right? And I think the combat in Portal 1 is done better than the combat in Portal 2, if we can even call it combat. But it's sort of like firing from the hip, and, like, you know, 2 turrets get placed in front of you, and you just immediately shoot at their feet so that they fall into each other, and that just sets them off, you know?
And there's, like, I think in Portal 1 there is a natural element of you may be grazed by a bullet or two, and then you're doing a frantic... It's frantic, but it works. Whereas I think if you're ever shot in Portal 2, you are doing the wrong thing, period.
Yeah, I can see that. How do we feel about GLaDOS in Portal 1?
Especially after playing Portal 2, I got big perspective on this. I like GLaDOS in Portal 1 way more. She's I think the one defining trait about her in both games is that she's passive aggressive. She'll be like, "Oh, how very smart of you to solve that puzzle. We did a puzzle like this on a 2-year-old and they solved it 5 minutes ago."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she would slight you in the same breath, as saying that you passed the test chamber, or she'll minimize how dangerous the room is. And I think those are really, really fun, and I love the reveal. I like the lack of emotion even when you decide to break out. It's like, hey, we were just kidding about the furnace. You can come back now. And
I think I
don't know, it's just silly.
Yeah, I think something about the escape, like the actual moment you escape the furnace, is such a great video game moment, because you see the fires coming, and it sort of registers to you that, wait, I'm still playing the game. This isn't a cutscene. I have actions over my own life. And then you can escape. And it feels like you're breaking the rules, because you are. You're breaking the rules of the test chamber. You're going behind the scenes. And so the narrator that's been accompanying you sort of calls out, hey, whoa, hey, don't you want to come back and play the game some more? Assume the party position.
Yeah.
You brought up this. You brought up this interesting thing in our chats where you kind of felt like the Doug Ratman chambers could be interpreted as still part of the test.
I did. I think especially after Portal 2, that's clearly a no-go. But I think as an insular single game, Portal, first of all, mainly because you see the graffiti throughout the thing. So if not part of the test, then other people have been in the same shoes you have.
Yeah, and that lends to the horror element.
Yes, that you are not the only one being preyed upon like this. And to me that really works, especially because those are also the few segments you get to see before it happens of hey, something not right is going on here, and you're peeking at behind the curtain basically. To me that and GLaDOS really seal this as a fun horror type experience. Especially also what I like is they don't ever, there are 2 times where the idea that this is connected to the Half-Life universe are mentioned. One of them is in a PowerPoint if you stare into the office windows. And then the other one is during the song at the very, very end. And I think both of those, if you thought about that beforehand, if you saw the screen and realized, oh, this is in universe, and GLaDOS is hey, let me tell you, the world outside ain't much better than what you're going through right the fuck now. With the context of the Combine, I think that shit's really engaging and really fun. As if, and this is a very Half-Life thing to do, is it sort of hints towards deeper horrors.
Yeah. I think there is something where, because I've played Portal 1 and Portal 2 multiple times before I ever played Half-Life. First time I played Half-Life was for this show. And so playing these now with that knowledge of when GLaDOS is hey, the outside world isn't much better. First time playing that, I thought she was talking about racism and pollution. She means no, the alien overlords.
Yeah. I would take GLaDOS over the Combine.
Yeah.
And that is not a great comparison. Yeah. But I also think maybe this is my complaint of Portal 1 is I think they walk that back a good bit by Portal 2. So this was created for the orange box.
Yeah.
And I think in Inception, they were trying to tie those 2 franchises together in a nice bow. As things were developing, I think they realized that it's not that practical to tie Portal with Half-Life. Half-Life being tied to Portal still helps for multiple reasons, but not the other way around. So by Portal 2, you barely get anything from that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I feel like it only is a miss when we get to the actual ending, which was patched.
Yeah.
I remember playing this game first, and the first time playing it, it feels like a breath of oh my god, she escaped. Everything's going to be better. And then the song is good luck out there. You're kind of fucked. I'm still going to be doing the exact thing I was doing when you woke up.
Yeah.
And like, to me, that was very effective. I feel like that ending was sort of softened by the update and Portal 2. But that's not necessarily a mark against Portal 2. I think Portal 2 made a decision to commit to something. And much like Half-Life 2 did. I think when you said this is like Half-Life 2 basically taking a single strand of the DNA of the first one and expanding on that, it made a lot more sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Like, do we want to just move on to Portal 2 now?
Let me think a little bit more on Portal 1.
I think there's two elements we haven't touched on. And these are sort of like, I think, not necessarily, well, one's kind of a meme. So, like, the companion cube, you know. Yeah. The companion cube is a mascot at this stage in the game's lifetime. But
I forgot how short it was in it.
It's only one chamber, and, you know, like, coming at this however many years it's been since I played Portal 1, I kind of forgot how effective, like, the companion cube is as, like, they do kind of bond you to it, and it's because GLaDOS won't stop talking about, like, hey, it's not alive. It's not alive, you know. Stop thinking that it's alive. And that's when you find, like, the first Ratman room, and he's, like, drawn pictures of the cube with angel wings, and the cube is, like, over, like, a Playboy model the calendar.
Yeah.
And then you get to the very end, and GLaDOS is like, now euthanize it. And I think it's that specific word of, like, euthanasia, rather than, like, destroy it or recycle it. You're euthanizing.
Well, this also goes back to the gameplay element of you have so many cubes throughout the game that you think nothing of them. Yeah. But this is a cube that persists through the chamber. You keep the cube and you're meant to hold on to that cube. And because you do that, you just naturally care about it more. And the one change between it and all the other cubes is it has a heart.
Yeah.
As like a friendly little inviting, like, this is the cube you like. And it is effective. It's funny how effective that is. It makes you feel like a test rat.
Yeah.
Because that feels like its own test. Does that make sense? That feels like data completely separate from the portals. They wrote that, you know what I mean?
It feels like a wire mother. Like, and like when you're seeing like baby animals in the zoo and the zookeeper comes in with the hand puppet, like that's what the companion cube is.
Yes, they're just testing how much you care about that block.
Yeah.
And I think that's super fun to do. And especially with the horror scenario of, like, you're going to burn this thing alive. I think that's the first scenario where you burn something. And later on, you end up burning pieces of GLaDOS. Like her own personality cores.
Yeah.
In fact, I will say the other thing I like about the GLaDOS fight is the different personality cores. I feel like that is done a little bit better. I feel like that's taken a little too far in Portal 2.
Yeah.
But I think it really works for GLaDOS.
No, I think the idea of, like, dismantling GLaDOS by, like, tearing off pieces of her and throwing them into a fire, as she says in the song.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of it's an odd catharsis. And I can't speak to exactly what's cathartic about it compared to any other boss fight in any other game. But because GLaDOS is, like, the only other, like, person, quote-unquote, in the game, if you can even, like, in Portal 1, even give her that moniker, it feels like, you know, you're just taking out your frustrations. Like, this whole... the cake was a fucking lie. The tests were a lie. Am I a lie? You know, and so you do, like, this brutal act of tearing them apart, throwing them in a fire.
Yeah. And I think one of the nice things about the runtime and pacing is I'm left wanting more, and I think mods and different level packs, all that stuff can come after, because I know it's a Valve game,
yeah.
You know?
I think Portal 1 is complete as it is.
Yes.
And it could have been left there, because like I said, it's a short horror story. The cool thing about a lot of short horror stories is that they don't have fucking sequels. This is why I prefer Stephen King's short collections to his novels, you know.
Yeah, and like as this ends, I will say before we lead into and segue into Portal 2 is like from the song and from the ending, there were three ways I thought this could go. Either A, and I still think that's possible, but probably not anymore. I feel like they were building towards using the portal gun in Half-Life 3.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be the big thing, because, again, aperture science and you hunting down portal technology is, minor spoiler alert, an element that is hinted at the end of episode 2. That becomes like the MacGuffin. So I thought it was going to lead to that. And then the other strand was going to be GLaDOS testing other people in other ways. Or C, a different personality testing the same way for portals. And I think we ended up getting the last two mixed together.
In a way. So, segueing into our second game of the week, which is Portal 2. Released 4 years after the original, Portal 2 sought to expand on every detail from its tech demo predecessor. Puzzles would contain more elements, such as light bridges, anti-gravity tunnels, 3 flavors of gel, and an entire co-op campaign. But it would also give more attention to the narrative, with more dialogue, more characters, and more lore, as to the history of Aperture, both pre- and post the events of the first game. Like Portal 1, Portal 2 was a smash hit with reviewers and internet culture, with many lines, such as combustible lemons, becoming lingua franca. Portal 2 also marks something of a shift in Valve as a company, with Gabe Newell even saying that it would be the last isolated single-player experience they ever produced. A statement that has held mostly true, if you count, like, Half-Life Alyx. That all said, Brogan, what do you think of Portal 2?
This is an 8 out of 10.
Like Hollow Knight.
Much like Hollow Knight.
I think, I am an older man. I think the last time I played this was, like, I think literally I played it 2 days after the 2016 election, because I wanted to feel good.
Yeah.
And that was the last time I played it. It's been 9 years since. The first time I finished Portal 2, Want You Gone played, and the Turret song played, and I stared at, the menu screen for the longest time, and I got up from my chair, and it was a dark and rainy night. I was home alone. And I went over to a rainy window, and I stared out at the rain with my hands behind my back, like a sea captain reflecting on his harrowing life. And I said to myself, no game has ever made me do that and feel that way before. I guess this is my favorite game now.
Do you still feel that way? We'll bookmark that. Let me say some opinions real quick.
Sure.
We're going to bookmark that shit. Okay. First of all, I ended up liking the game more this time around.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if I give it more time, I will like this game more as it goes. I feel like my problems with the game were exacerbated this time. Like, I was not prepared to realize that the game is not half as funny as it thinks it is. And I was not prepared for how much the cutscenes would take over the gameplay, especially in the first portion. I feel like once you get to the Cave Johnson section and onward, the game is good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like the game is strong, and it is doing the things I want it to do, and it's being funny in the ways I want. Like, I enjoy, and I think. Let me start at the start. So Wheatley, is I think a bad companion, but a good pitch for a villain. Yeah, because I think being the opposite of GLaDOS is a good pitch for what I said earlier of, like, a different AI personality being in charge of the tests is a good narrative way to shake things up. And they did that twice. Originally, if you read the final hours of Portal, they were going to do, like, more Cave Johnson. They were going to do, like, different things with Wheatley. But, like, they ended up settling for, like, just old speaker recordings of Cave Johnson so you understand the development of Aperture Science. And then Wheatley going from this personality core that intentionally lowers IQ to, like, being the person that runs the entire lab, and he doesn't know what he's doing, which means that the unsafe tests are 10 times more unsafe, and the building is falling apart. I think that stuff's really, really fascinating. And it's really, really interesting. But that first section, man, I feel like it's a lot of buildup for not a lot of anything.
Yeah, I think looking back, if we're looking at, like, the three hosts of Portal, GLaDOS, Wheatley, and Cave Johnson in Portal 2, Wheatley is the weakest link because he's very... I hesitate to even say of-the-time humor, because I feel it's like a chicken and egg scenario where people say Portal 2...
He helped contribute to the Reddit shit, yeah. But I think Stephen Merchant in that era was also really big into that.
Yeah.
And, like, Valve was, like, at the forefront of Reddit. Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't
mean?
think Portal 2 was written to cater to a particular comedy style. I think its particular comedy style created the era of the 2010s humor, you know?
Yeah. Yep. As part of it, yep.
Let me think about it. I think, like, Valve's revelation, maybe, was, like, watching people play test or even play Portal 1, and players getting really excited for the moment they broke out. You know? That, like I said, that revelation of, like, oh, I'm still playing the game. This isn't a cutscene. And they kind of leaned into that for the entire first half of Portal 1, or Portal 2. Where it's like, you know, yeah, this is a standard puzzle room until something happens, like, oh, Wheatley appears. You know, and he does that a few times.
Yeah.
Or GLaDOS intentionally, like, fucks with the solution in order to admonish you or something. Like, the companion cube reappears, but it's to make a point of how GLaDOS has tons of companion cubes.
I think one of the things I don't like about this game is I don't think it's a problem because I understand how they function. A lot of the scripted segments are in, like, the back rooms where everything's, like, black metal.
Yeah.
And in a lot of those, they'll just throw in, like, a white wall in a corner. And then you gotta, like, portal. Like, half of it is just finding out where you're allowed to portal the thing.
Yeah.
And then putting the portal down. That is, like, a decent portion of the puzzles in this game that aren't in an actual chamber.
Yeah, and I can't, like, I can see that being frustrating, especially if you're here for the actual, like, portal-y puzzles. That doesn't faze me none, because I guess in my head I've accepted that while Portal 1 was a puzzle game with narrative elements, Portal 2 is the opposite, kind of. It's a narrative game with puzzle elements.
Yeah.
And I think something I saw in, like, the old Yahtzee review of the game was he called out that Portal 1 has white walls with occasional black to hinder you. Portal 2 has black walls with occasional white to help you. And I think that leans into the fact that, like, it's less about thinking with portals and more about thinking with all the other stuff they throw out at you. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I love the goo. Very pro
I do.
goo.
I love the goo. I'm a fan of goo for sure.
You know, and if you look at the development of Portal 2, they went through a lot of different ideas, like up to the wire before they came up with this. And if you, like, take in every design document, Portal 2 is kind of a Frankenstein of every idea they had. Originally, it was just going to be the old Aperture laboratory.
Yeah.
But players wanted to see GLaDOS again, and they wanted to follow up to Chell, you know? So they came up with this idea of, okay, you start with Wheatley, but then Wheatley gets killed off, and he's replaced by these other, like, cores that you need to work with, one of which was going to be a Morgan Freeman core. But playtesters kept asking, well, what happened to Wheatley? I liked Wheatley, you know.
I was gonna say maybe the other problem I have with this game is you know me.
Yes.
I love Half-Life 2.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, Half-Life 2 is a banger. Even now, even with the detractors in the corners saying Half-Life 2 wasn't that good, I'm like, no, you're wrong, it's a banger. That being said, I feel like Portal... First of all, Portal 1 feels almost not like a Valve game.
I can cop
because
that,
it's mostly not.
It really isn't.
Whereas this game may be where Valve has gotten too much Valve. I'm like, okay, now there's too much Valve in this. They cared too much about focus testing. They listened way too much to whoever fucking played the focus tests of this game.
Yeah.
I did not need half the stuff they gave me. By Chell, it could have been anybody. Mm-hmm. Like, you did not need Chell again. And you did not need GLaDOS. GLaDOS is, like, radically different. She goes through an arc in this game. And the arc is not necessarily, like, crazy productive. It just sort of gives you some lore. And then by the end of it, she's like, I've decided I'm not going to kill you. I just want you to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
And, like, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Right, that's cool.
I think playing these back-to-back for the first time in forever really does highlight how different GLaDOS is written and performed in Portal 1 compared to here. I think you can kind of justify it in the narrative by, one, she doesn't have the morality dampening sphere anymore, and two, she doesn't need to act, you know, that there's anything sinister.
There's no pretense. She's like, you killed me, I am now out for revenge. And then when we get to Potato GLaDOS, I do think Potato GLaDOS works. But it's a completely different beast.
Yeah.
And it feels much more like a natural companion.
Mm-hmm. I think that, like, one, I kind of like GLaDOS's attempts at being petty and vengeful, like with the fat comments or the orphan comments. Like, those can feel gratuitous, but I think it's also because GLaDOS doesn't actually have that much A material, you know?
Yeah.
It kind of what I read Portal 2 as, really, if you take the narrative as a whole, is like sort of a story about like generational trauma, man handing his indignity onto man. Like, you know, Cave Johnson was a shithead, and if you count cut content as canon, he did something real horrible to Caroline that led her to being GLaDOS. And then GLaDOS in turn takes all her trauma and sort of like isn't able to process it, so she just takes it out on you. It really...
But I don't know how much this actually plays out, like, in-game. Because, first of all, it doesn't. And number two, by the end of it, you're going after Wheatley, who is a much weaker villain. I feel like it works for the Chambers to be like, oh, this Chamber's going to shit. You literally made this up 2 seconds ago. But, like, in terms of a final boss, it doesn't shake very well. Because you're still... First of all, you're doing fundamentally the same thing you were doing with GLaDOS, but it's with gel. And that's cool, I guess. I'm pro gel. Don't get me wrong. But like, I guess a good example here is the final moment of the game is you placing a portal on the moon because you saw the moon. Yeah. And, like, it's a very scripted moment. The moment I saw it, I was like, oh, fuck, the game's already over now. And so I just pressed the button. And I wasn't ready for it to be like that. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Yeah, we're there now. And, it was weird. It was very weird to me.
Huh. Was that this time playing it or your first time playing it? You felt
yes. Yeah, this time. Because I know what that moment you're basically scripted.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, we're done now.
Okay, I was confused because I have never heard anyone that wasn't like a little hype for realizing they can put a portal on the moon.
I don't think I was ever hyped for it because to me it's like signposted. I don't know.
It's not signposted because they like foreshadowed. Like that's narratively like you're supposed to recognize that. Yeah.
He says that the portals only work on moon rocks, and he's like, we've invested so much of our fucking money into moon rocks. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
So like, it's not necessarily that I thought a moon was going to come up, but when I saw the moon, I was like, this is the only thing I can do in this moment. But that goes back to the Valve thing of these intensely scripted moments, and there's so many of them in Portal. There were plenty in Half-Life. I just didn't care about them then. But like these scripted moments, like glaze over me at a certain point.
Wheatley as a final boss, I think, is hampered by the Frankensteining of whatever the development for this was, because the revelation that Wheatley is like the ultimate moron, it didn't really ring that true this time around. Because the thing about, like, his plan works, right? His plan to help you, like, get to GLaDOS and defeat GLaDOS, it works.
Time out. I don't even get this.
Right.
Why does Wheatley save you at the start?
He saves you at the start because, he needs a human to operate the portal gun, which they need to get out.
So he wants to leave the facility.
Yeah, he wants to, like, leave. And it's only in the moment of, like, oh, I can trade places with GLaDOS that he's like, I want to stay. Because I like being in charge. Yeah. There, if you listen to his dialogue at the start, when he's, like, knocking on the door, he does have a line where he says, oh, there was an odd man in a suit looking for you. And I love the idea of Wheatley and the G-Man having a conversation.
That's funny. Yeah, I think the Wheatley as a companion thing, I mean, it's just like witty British Stephen Merchant. I'm not crazy about British humor. There are two funny British people. One of them is Stephen and the other one's Joe. I guess the third one's Jack.
Okay, all right.
Otherwise, there are no funny British people in the world.
Man, nice save, because I was ready to swoop in there if you said, like, oh, Tim Minchin.
Yeah, those three are the only funny British people. Everyone else, doesn't.
This explains...
Stephen Merchant definitely does not work for me at all.
This explains a lot of your reaction to this game. It really is the Wheatley test.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, Broken, and dear listeners at home. I don't know if this is going to be a revelation, but I don't have, like, you know, the best track record with having taste and humor, especially when it comes to games from the 2010s. I 100% completed Borderlands 2, and I look back on that experience fondly. So if we want to, like, get to any sort of, like, core of, like, you know, outside of any navel gazing of trying to come up with a reason why this is my go-to favorite game of all time, I think the actual reason is, why did Jessica Rabbit love Roger? Because he makes her laugh.
Because he's funny. Well, there you go. And, I will say something. I did not do it this time around. However, when I played this game as a wee lad, my favorite part of this game is the co-op campaign, which remains a banger.
The co-op's good. Like, if anyone's like, oh man, Portal 2 doesn't have any puzzles, it's because all the puzzles are in the co-op. And I think that's because that's...
Yeah, the co-op's still good. Thumbs up. No complaints.
Yeah. Like, just the concept of having 4 portals to work with, like, that gets your mind going. But then if you think about all the extra elements they brought in Portal 2, the goo, the tunnels, the light bridges, that really gets your brain going. And the fact that it's like screw over your friends by, like, pressing the button to, like, close the trap door on them and stuff like that. Like, there is something, like, you know, I think there's a reason why the co-op characters are the, like, cover of the game. That's the box art. Yeah. You know, probably, I'm gonna guess, maybe Valve wanted this to be a co-op game, but they knew that Portal had this ravenous, deeply loyal fan base that wanted some sort of conclusion.
Do you feel like it successfully worked as a follow-up?
I think it does. I like the bow on it, you know? Because the Turret song and Want You Gone, those just rip me to shreds. In a way that, like, I'm still, as a 30-year-old man, trying to find answers for. And you know, if the conclusion is just like Chell is out in the world now with her dirty companion cube, if she even wants that, sure. I think, and we talked about this back and forth, was like, I kind of read Portal 2 more as like a soft reboot of the first, where I don't really know if I would tell someone, you have to play Portal 1. You play Portal 1 because it's a great-ass game. But if you just want to play Portal 2, you can kind of just play Portal 2 because everything that's like in the lead-up, like to your need-to-know information, is kind of explained to you in dialogue and environmental storytelling. You mentioned that like Portal 2 ruins Doug Ratman, right? Because it kind of turns him into this weird, like...
They also make Chell a bigger deal. I feel like this goes back to the Gordon Freeman thing, right? Almost a one-to-one parallel of, like, in the first Half-Life, Gordon Freeman's a fucking dude who is lucky to have a suit that protects him from a lot of stuff. Whereas in Half-Life 2, there's a mythology to him. Oh my god, he's the last free man.
He's the last free man.
It works for me in that one because there's a bit of irony to that, etc., etc. It all works. Chell is another example of the same exact dynamic, but like I'm like you're putting too much lore into this girl. Like what? She should just be a test person because I feel like that's what the rest of Portal 1 was reflecting. Is that you are the lucky survivor maybe of a bunch of other people dying horribly.
You're the one that figured it out.
Yes.
You know, you're the one that noticed, hey, I still have free will here. I can portal out of this furnace.
And everyone else who did hid in corners and scratched on walls trying to survive.
Yeah. And I think there is a moment that I think about a lot as like a character moment, if you want to call it that, where you are in the back rooms and there's the take your daughter to work day like science exhibits, you know. And that's mainly just to set up the foreshadowing of putting GLaDOS in a potato, but also one of those science exhibits has Chell's name on it. Why it doesn't have her last name, I don't know. But I think about that a lot of like, you know, Chell is a 100% blank slate character. But in that moment, if she, you know, has internal thoughts and isn't just like brain damaged, as a lot of the dialogue suggests, what does she think about that? Does she recognize her own name? Does she remember this? Like, there's a lot, I think, like, I sit there, I remember the first time I noticed that on a second playthrough, and I was like, God, this is weird to think about, that she had a life before being a test subject.
And there's no
but
reaction.
But it was still tied to Aperture.
Yes.
Yeah.
Much like the Gordon Freeman problem as well. Again, this may be my thesis for this now, is that this is too much Valve. Before I liked Valve, and now I've got so much Valve, I'm all done.
Yeah, and then you get like the writers for the game coming out like years later and doing like the J.K. Rowling thing of like retroactive lore where it's like, Chell can speak, but she's so angry she chooses not to. And I'm like, you know what? You had a chance to like have a canonically mute character. That would have been cool representation.
Yeah.
Because now, if Chell ever does, like, do some gratuitous cameo in a Half-Life 3, you're gonna have to have her speak, probably, right?
And I mean, I think they would. I think she would 1,000% speak. Yeah.
I think the most ideal Chell cameo in a Half-Life 3 is, like, you have some sort of resistance base, and she's just, like, in the background. You know, she's just, like, one of the people you can run up to and look at. And it's, like, clearly Chell from Portal. But she doesn't say anything to you because she can't speak. But, you know, you and the gamers go, like, that's Chell.
How much do you know the secrets of this game?
The secrets? The deep lore?
The deep lore. How much do you know about this?
Probably if you mention things, they'll come up to me. Because I have gone on, like, rabbit holes about this. I've seen the iceberg.
Did you see you haven't played episode 2, so there's a little bit of a removal here of understanding. But there's like a sequence of events you have to do in this game to unlock a door to see the shipyard for the Borealis. The Aperture Borealis is the MacGuffin of Half-Life 2 Episode 2. At the very end of it, it's a ship location owned by Aperture Science where there's technology for portal technology. At the very end, they find the location in Half-Life 2 Episode 2, and then something bad happens, and then cliffhanger. But, like, Go ahead.
No, this isn't ringing any bells. Maybe I knew at one point, but I didn't know anything about Half-Life, so I didn't really have, like, purchase on it.
Yeah.
But no, this is wild to me.
Yeah, so they have the shipyard. The ship is not docked in Portal 2. That's, like, the one primary, I would say, like, big Half-Life reference here is that. The other Easter eggs and stuff are cool. I do like the Ratman stuff in this still. I think the radio stuff is cute. I don't get the turrets. I don't get them. I think they're...
You know, what?
I don't get it.
I think you mean specifically, like, the good turret, or just the turrets as a whole?
The turrets as a whole.
You know, I think the turrets are a symptom of Half-Life 1 to Half-Life 2, where in Half-Life 1, the turrets are, like, sinister with their cutesy little voices.
You mean Portal 1?
Portal 1.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry, I have COVID. Huh. In Half-Life... Damn it! Portal 1, the turrets are sinister. In Portal 2, they're characters.
Yeah.
You know. And they're, yeah, like... The one, like, the Prometheus turret that you find, that does feel a little gratuitous. I think that the game doesn't really need that, but, you know, it's a meme, so you rip it from the timeline, you change things irrevocably.
Oh my gosh.
As far as, like, other meme lines, this time around, like, the combustible lemon speech really came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's supposed to come out of nowhere, but, like, bro just starts talking.
Yeah, I don't feel like there was a gradual decline, but I guess the moon rocks made him go crazy.
Yeah. We haven't actually talked much about Cave Johnson.
I think Cave Johnson, well, it's because I have no complaints. I think it's, first of all, I think J.K. Simmons does a great performance. I feel like it is the most Portal element of this. You are doing test chambers, and then the companion or the narrator talking to you is funny. There's a trajectory of, like, starting it with fancy tests for the best and brightest of America,
yeah,
and then shit goes to hell because of all the liability, and, like, they start going bankrupt, and the tests start getting half-assed. And to me, that works far more. The problem there is like, I guess if you were making a Portal 2 on that, you can't make a final boss on that. But I don't know if Portal fucking needs a final boss. It's a puzzle game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think, like, something that's so interesting seeing Cave Johnson in 2025 is, we kind of live in a world of Cave Johnsons, right? You know, back in 2012, I did have, like, long conversations with my schoolyard chums around the cafeteria lunch table, where I was like, I think Cave Johnson is misunderstood. He's a really interesting character. Because there is something where, like, yeah, he's not a good dude, but at the same time, he does want to, like, contribute something to human knowledge. He wants to do a science. He just wants his name attached to it. And I think that's something we see with, you know, our little techno oligarchs of the world. Our Musks and Bezoses and Zuckerbergs. And it feels a little prescient when this game came out in 2011.
I definitely think that's the bit of this game that holds up the most.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, you know, if Portal 2 was just all of the old Aperture facility, like, you know, quick rewrite, take out Wheatley, take out GLaDOS, Chell wakes up, not even Chell, or, you know, someone. You wake up in a regular testing chamber, the floor falls out from beneath you, you're in old Aperture.
And it's all
and
goo?
You need to get out.
10 out of 10, what a game. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. But, as is.
Yeah.
Portal 2's probably still my go-to favorite game of all time.
It's fine. It's fine. I get it. Here's the thing is if you find it funny, I get it. This does not scratch the top 50 for me.
Wow. Okay, that's actually brutal.
This time around, I was like, the problem is it confirmed a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think this time I still liked it more, but that's because I think I'm the negativity's only stewing from, I want to say, like a third of the game. I want to say like 2/3 of the game are still pretty good.
I mean, but
like,
that's still a third of the game. You know, if the third of the game is making you mad, that's like saying, like, you know,
there's
like that, and I got mad at you. That would be like you saying, "Oh, a third of my pizza is rotten."
yeah, there was once
like,
a
"But come
metaphor
on,
or an
man."
analogy someone once told me of, if you had the best Sunday of your life in front of you, but there is about a bead the size of your pinky finger or your pinky nail, and it's shit, and it's just on the ice cream. You would not eat a bite of the ice cream.
No.
That being said, I don't feel like that's this scenario. I think this is a good game. I would recommend this game, and I would definitely recommend this game in terms of co-op. It's not. I don't love it. I don't love it.
How do you feel about the tail that the Portal franchise has had on it? Because Portal seems to be, more than anything, what Valve falls back on when they want to remind people that they still make games sometimes.
I feel like Portal is conducive to sequels in a way of like, oh, you can just do this tech thing. It's a cute tech thing. Aperture Science is funnier than Black Mesa. You can't make a lot of jokes about Half-Life. And you can't have a light product of something goofy and experimental. Best case you can have is Half-Life Alyx. And I think that's because Valve feels the need to be cutting edge with Half-Life.
Yeah. I kind of dislike the Portal sequels, official or not, because there are a lot of, like, Valve-sanctioned fan sequels floating around, like Portal Stories Mel and Portal Reloaded and Thinking with Time Travel and things like that. And Lego Dimensions, which is, like, the Portal expansion pack for Lego Dimensions is a Valve-sanctioned sequel to Portal 2. That's wild. It has a whole new Jonathan Coltrane song.
I've mentally blocked this out. I've never played this.
Yeah. But, like, because it does... It's one of those things where the more you add to it, the more you kind of take away.
Yeah.
Where, in the way of, like, Portal 1... a horror story. The facility is isolated. You and GLaDOS are probably the only things there. And then Portal 2 comes in and says, actually, there's a lot of little AIs running around, you know, completely independent of GLaDOS. Kind of takes away from that.
Yeah.
When they launched the Steam Deck, with the Steam Deck you get a free game called Aperture Desk Job, which has another wacky little personality core talking to you. But the end of that game is you find Cave Johnson, and he's converted himself into a giant talking statue that's, like, at the bottom of the facility because it's so heavy. And he's just trapped there, immortal forever. And that sort of takes away from the story of Cave Johnson, where it's way more interesting that he died of moon cancer.
And there's a significance to, if I don't put my brain in a computer before I die, do it to Caroline. And then that just answers everything you need to know about GLaDOS in a minute. And that doesn't happen anymore. They don't care. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I've come to terms with Portal 2, that realization, that development, it's fine. I get it. That's what they do with this series. And it's okay, because I think it's meant to be approachable, fun, goofy. But it's not what it used to be.
Yeah. I think that's sort of the takeaway. That's my old man shaking fist at clouds, where it's like, you could have had something had you just the temerity to restrain. But Portal was, you know, what Portal became kind of lacked restraint. Because people are here for the combustible lemons and the cake is a lie, you know?
Yeah. Well, Murph, I think...
Oh, well.
Well, so it's still one of your favorite games. Still your go-to favorite game. Okay.
Probably, yeah. I haven't come across anything else. I guess I could say Outer Wilds, but
I think Outer Wilds is better than Portal 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, Murph, where can we find us?
Well, you can find us exactly where we are on the Daydreamcast, wherever you're listening to this, be it on Spotify, Red Circle. You can't listen on Google Play anymore because they shut that shit down.
Boo.
You can also find us on YouTube at the Daydreamcast, where we put up video episodes of these episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Along with a bunch of supplemental materials. We have Let's Plays like Goof Troop.
Mm-hmm.
Goof Troop.
I played Mega Man 9.
For the SNES. You did play Mega Man 9.
Yeah.
Are you going to play Mega Man 10?
Maybe. I was going to play Mega Man X first. Maybe a Castlevania.
Okay, well, X is the Roman numeral for 10.
This is not canon. Shut up.
Okay. Calm down.
I banish you from the realm in which you came. How dare you talk about it like that? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, go check that out. You can also go listen to my other podcast. This podcast is a bad idea, where every now and again, me and my co-host Fru look at that different internet subculture. Brogan has been on as our first and so far only guest. We talked about G4 and E3.
I was so great. They had me on and they said, let's never have a guest again.
We peaked.
More like they don't want another guest on ever because it was a tragedy.
We also had our season finale where I looked at an extremely niche subreddit phenomena that called r/LVSS, and the less you know about going into that episode, the better.
Oh my gosh.
For a brief moment, we were convinced we had killed Donald Trump with the release of the episode.
That would be so fun.
I know. What the vibes at PAX would have been were it true. But alas, instead, I got COVID.
That's life for you.
Yeah. But we're not actually done with our glorified walking simulators, are we?
No, we're not.
Because we've done Obra Dinn, we've done the portals. Now, next game up in the docket is a game I'm gonna say incredibly influenced by Portal.
Yeah.
To the point it was built in the Source engine originally. We're going to play a game about a man named Stanley and his parable.
Wow.
It's the Stanley Parable, if that wasn't clear.
Wow, I had no idea. Thanks, Murph. We're playing out now.
Won't you go